Hello EFD squad, you dirty dogs, and welcome back to One on One, the most in-depth football show on YouTube. Now, what we're going to do today is rank the transfer dealings of the top 10 divisions. And by transfer dealings, I mean the two most expensive imports to that respective league. So, some rules. There'll be a maximum of 10 points available to each competitor, which will be decided by the following criteria. Value for money, 0 to 5 points. Competitiveness, 0 to 5 points. We'll then combine the scores to decide the outright winners. Simple. And if we hit 3k likes on this bad boy, Patrick Van Straten and I will do a reaction video to old vintage episodes of Stat Wars content. I will also follow whoever gets the most like comments on Twitter until you annoy me. Let's go. 10. The Austrian Bundesliga. 2 players, 1 club here. While the rest of the league busy themselves snaffling up freebies, RB Salzburg have spent a combined 8.55 million on Kamil Piatkowski and Nicolas Capaldo. Piatkowski from Rakow in Poland and Capaldo from Boca Juniors in Argentina. So, did Salzburg get good value? Well, according to Transfermarkt, the pair were snapped up for roughly their market value, which is a good start. Plus, the duo are in their early 20s, so plenty of time to add value and move them on for a sizable return, which Salzburg have done with aplomb in recent seasons. Take the recent £50 million that they generated selling Patson Daka to Leicester and Enoch Mwepu to Brighton, who they bought to the club for a combined 225k. Now, Piatkowski was actually being tracked by a host of clubs after an impressive second season at Rakow and can play pretty much anywhere along that back line. Capaldo is a central midfielder who's represented Argentina at under 23 level and has also featured in the Copa Libertadores for Boca Juniors. You wouldn't bet against Salzburg making a profit on one of these guys, would you? So value-wise, I'm going to go 3 out of 5. But do they make the league more competitive? Now, the Austrian Bundesliga is already well underway, and as of match day 4, RB Salzburg sits atop of the division. Pretty ominous, considering they won the league by 15 points last season, and 12 points the season before, and 12 points the season before that. In fact, they've won it every year since 2012-13. So, almost by default, we have to mark the Austrian Bundesliga down in this category. The strongest side strengthening once more, no one else doing anything of note. So it's a measly 0.5 out of 5 for me. Belgium. Another 2 players, 1 club situation. This time it's Club Bruges, who have spent a combined €12.5 million on Stanley Nsoki and Noah Lang. But does that represent good value? In a word, exceptional. 22-year-old Lang is already valued at €22 million after a scintillating loan spell that saw him contribute to 23 goals in 26 starts last term. Fortunately for FCB, they had an obligation to buy of just €6 million cooked into his loan deal from Ajax. Now, Nsoki is a different story and will be hoping to bounce back after an underwhelming 2-year stint at Nice. Les Aiglons picked him up for €12.5 million in 2019. So this is very much a case of Bruges picking up the pieces and trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So, value for money wise, pretty much for Lang alone, I'm going to go 4 out of 5. But do they make the Jupiler Pro more competitive? Now, the league structure is quite messy in Belgium. Once every side has played one another in a round-robin format, there's a series of playoffs, including the Championship playoff, which features the top 4. So, while Bruges dominated the first phase, Genk actually quickly caught up in the final round of fixtures and almost clinched the crown. Still, Bruges are the preeminent side and have just secured one of the best players in the league on a permanent basis. So, gonna have to lowball this one. 1.5 out of 5. Russia. Finally, 2 clubs to discuss. Colombian John Cordoba has gone to Krasnodar for a cool €20 million, while Brazilian Claudinho has cost Zenit significantly less on €12 million. Let's start with Cordoba, who I am somewhat puzzled about. Now, he's 28 and he's only reached double digits in terms of goals in a top division once in his entire career. Despite this, his most recent club, the free-spending Hertha Berlin, managed to turn a £4.5 million profit on it, even though he was only fit enough to start 17 league games. More alarming still, prior to this switch for not an insignificant amount of money, 20 of his 59 career goals in the league, that is, arrived in the German second division. This guy has run up £55 million in transfer fees. Who is his agent And what is his number? Now, as for 24-year-old Claudinho, he'll be on cloud 9. Couldn't resist. After winning the Summer Olympics with Brazil. This rounded off a pretty impressive 2020 for Claudinho that saw him feature 50 times for Brazilian side Red Bull Bragantino, scoring 20 goals from attacking midfield. That's league and state championship if you're wondering why he made so many appearances, with the latter one being the vastly inferior competition. Overpay for Cordoba, bog standard fee for a promising Brazilian when it comes to Claudinho. Will they make the RPL more competitive? Let's start with Claudinho. Now, Zenit dominated the 16-team division last term, winning by a margin of 8 points. Creatively speaking, they're pretty well stocked. They've got Douglas Santos and Malcolm, both of whom managed over 2 key passes per 90 in the last season. So adding the playmaking abilities of young Claudinho will only bolster them in this regard. Not great for the rest of the league if he does bang. Krasnodar, on the other hand, finished 10th, but still managed to score 52 goals, which was only bettered by the top 2 teams. So it appears they're going to double down on goals, which is an ethos I can get behind. To be fair, Cordoba has gone off like a rocket in the RPL, contributing to 4 goals in his first 3 games. Still, not sure if I can see either of these affecting the complexion of the league in a really meaningful way. So I'm going to go for 2.5 again out of 5, which gives the Russian Premier League a respectable 5 out of 10. The Netherlands. Now, the Dutch clubs have reined in the spending big time this season, with selling the name of the game. Yes, Ajax have added attacking midfielder Steven Berghuis from bitter rivals Feyenoord for just 5.5 million euros, but they've also shipped out 28 million pounds worth of talent. Aware that I'm jumping between euros and pounds here, but I've just gone with however it was reported. And PSV have indeed secured the services of promising young goalkeeper Joel Drommel for a modest 3.5 million euros, but have also had to offload 45 million pounds worth of their own players. Regardless, have these two got bang for buck when it's come to these deals? Despite failing to make an impression on English shores while at Watford, pretty obscure, 29-year-old Berghuis's output in the Dutch top flight has been nothing short of prolific. During his 5 seasons in Rotterdam, he contributed to a staggering 0.74 goals per 90 from attacking midfield. This included a career best of 32 goals and assists in 32 starts last season, although 8 of them were penalties. Now, as for 24-year-old Drommel, he'll be challenging Yvonne Mavogo for the number 1 spot at PSV. Last term for FC Twente, Drommel had a marginally better save percentage than Mavogo, keeping out a sizable 109 shots in the process, the 3rd best record in the league. Value-wise, at least for their respective sides, these signings could prove to be a solid 4 out of 5. However, the fact that they've taken them from rivals is going to damage them in the competitiveness category. Now, Ajax won the title last season by a bloody robust 16 points, and now they've taken Feyenoord's star player for an absolute snip. And FC Twente were never going to challenge for the title, very much a mid-table to Europa League side, but losing one of their star performers for such a little return must really hurt. Gonna have to give this a measly 0.5 for competitiveness. Portugal. Now, it looks like Porto and Benfica are out for blood after Sporting CP secured their first title in almost 2 decades last season. Benfica, who finished 3rd in the aforementioned campaign, have probably made the most noteworthy signing, and someone that I'm a huge fan of. Snapping up against Ukrainian powerhouse Roman Yaremchuk for 17 million euros. And if his first 57 minutes are anything to go by, where he scored and assisted, the Eagles fans are in for a treat this season. Now, I don't know much about Porto's marquee signing Pepe, who cost 15 million euros from Grêmio, but here goes. Now, the 24-year-old has been playing at a high level in Brazil's Serie A for Grêmio for the past 2.5 seasons. Now, he's a left winger by trade, so will perhaps be looking to challenge Luis Diaz down that left flank in Sergio Conceição's 4-4-2. Enough context. What are the scores at the doors for value? Now, both clubs got their players for pretty much market rate, so a solid start. Plus, in Porto's case, their scouting of South America has been more reliable in recent times than their scouting of Europe. Mehdi Taremi, Luis Diaz, Marchesi, Uribe, Eder Militao, all proving successful to various degrees. But Pepe's probably going to be a squad player for the foreseeable, while Yaremchuk looks like he could be one of Benfica's marquee players moving forward. So for value, let's go for a solid 3.5. Okay, so does this business mean that the title is back on for either party? Sporting only won the league last season by 5 points, so hardly a landslide. Like I've said, less convinced that Pepe is going to affect the complexion of the league table, but Roman Yaremchuk could be a revelation. Is he capable alone of facilitating a 6-point swing? So securing 2 wins from the jaws of defeat? Yes. And for that, I'm going to give them another 3.5, meaning that the Primera Liga gets a healthy 7 out of 10. Right, on to the big 5 leagues now, and I'm going to spend less time providing context. France. I mean, the only thing that PSG lacked last season was elite fullbacks, and they just went and snapped up the best right wing back in the game on a 4-year contract for a pretty modest 50 to 60 million euros. I say modest because he's only 22 and could theoretically be at the Parc des Princes for the next decade. But you all know about Hakimi and PSG's endless riches, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about the second most expensive signing in the league, which is Gerson, who went to Marseille for 25 million euros. Now, Sampaoli's Marseille have been very fun to watch at the start of this season, scoring 5 goals in 2 matches while conceding 4. Not to mention, they've already been shown their first red card on match day 2. Fortunately, that player was not 24-year-old midfielder Gerson. Now, the name might sound familiar to you, and that is because he spent time at Roma and Fiorentina and really failed to shine at either. However, when he returned to Flamengo in 2019 for a Brazilian record in terms of fee, he slowly changed that trajectory back to up. Defensively, numbers still pretty average, just 2.2 tackles and interceptions per 90 in his last full season in Rio. However, what he is truly exceptional at is dribbling and ball retention. Now, I've ranked the value of the deals at 4 out of 5 because, like I've said, that Hakimi business is truly frightening. But does PSG, addressing one of their only true weaknesses in emphatic fashion from last season, do much for the competitiveness of the league? And this is messy chat aside. No. And Marseille were 16 points off Champions League football last season. And does Gerson help bridge this mighty, mighty gap? Probably not. I'm actually going to go -1 out of 5 for competitiveness. What? If PSG can get creative with their accounting, I can get creative with my scoring. Germany. Now, Dayot Upamecano to Bayern, great but boring business. The second most expensive deal, Donyell Malen to Dortmund, much more fun. Personal views aside, you cannot fault either of these deals in terms of value for money. Upamecano was desperately needed after Jerome Boateng, David Alaba and Javi Martinez all left the club this summer. And Malen's coming off the best domestic season of his career, contributing to 27 goals in 26 starts, injury woes behind him, still a great age, steal at 30 million euros. Considering the age, pedigree and price of these two, can we do anything other than score value for money at 5? Probably not. Now, in terms of competitiveness, does a fit Donyell Malen help Dortmund get closer to Bayern? A little bit. The problem there is they were 14 points off the Bavarians last season and no longer have Jadon Sancho. Although you'd like to think that the arrival of Marco Rosa from Borussia Mönchengladbach will help bridge that gap too. But still, they signed Upamecano from the second best club in the country. So that is something we also have to take into consideration. I'm going to give competitiveness a 1.5. Italy. Now combined, Tammy and Tomori only made 52 starts for Chelsea in their 4 seasons in the first team setup. But the Premier League's loss is Serie A's gain big time in this case, with Roma and AC Milan shelling out 69 million euros to bring the pair to Italian shores. All that remains to be seen is that can Abraham adapt in the same way that Tomori did in his 6-month loan spell with the Rossoneri. I mean, he displaced vice-captain Romagnoli from the defence, which is pretty impressive, and he was making twice as many tackles as the Italian. He was dribbled round less, he made more blocks, he committed fewer fouls and made more passes per 90. So very much on merit rather than reputation. Unlike Tomori, Tammy was at one point a regular feature for Chelsea and will perhaps feel a little bit aggrieved at the lack of faith, let's say, shown in him towards the end of his tenure there. Although Chelsea have inserted a buyback clause of £68 million into their deal with Roma, so have prepared themselves for him setting the division alight. That's only active from 2023 though, so Roma fans are guaranteed at least 2 seasons. Value for money wise, I think this is a straight up 4 out of 5. Do these moves make Serie A more competitive? Absolutely. Especially with incumbent champions Inter shedding their manager and key players, and Juve having little to no money to spend. Now, Roma's top goal scorer last season was Henrik Mkhitaryan with 13. Plus, Nicolas Zaniolo is back to full fitness, so Tammy's supply line looking pretty healthy. Mourinho's side won't be challenging for the title, but they're much better placed to gatecrash the Champions League places with Abraham in the squad. As such, marks for competitiveness are high. I'm going to give him 4 out of 5. 2. Spain. We have been crying out for someone to buy Rodrigo de Paul from Udinese for the past 3 seasons. And finally, Diego Simeone has heeded Eurofootball Daily's call. Now, €35 million is extremely fair business for a player who put up 0.4 goal contributions per 90 for a struggling Udinese outfit. In 2021, De Paul equalled his best output to date, contributing to 18 goals and assists in just 36 games. The Udines finished 14th, 7 points clear of relegation. So on a possession dominant side, I think it's safe to say he could do far more damage. Now, when it came to chance creation last season, Atletico were actually behind Real Madrid, Barcelona and Sevilla when it came to key passes on a per game basis. An incisive passing in the final third is where the 27-year-old De Paul truly excels. In fact, the Argentine's key passes haven't dropped below 2 per 90 since the 2016-17 season. So, Atleti fans expect improved service to Suarez, Morata and Felix from central areas. He will have to work on the physical side of his game to fit in, which is the price you pay to play under Cholo, isn't it? Last season, he made 14 pressures per 90. Thomas Lemar, by comparison, whose position he might be contending with, was making close to 21. And the second most expensive transfer in La Liga, Juan Foyth to Villarreal. Value 3.5. Now, from a competitive standpoint, I think the De Paul move is smart because it is Atleti turning the screw on Barcelona and Real Madrid while they are still vulnerable. Would have been quite easy for the Atleti board to rest on their laurels given the financial peril that both the big boys are in. Also looks like they might sign Vlahovic for €70 million. I mean, with both of these players, Atleti would definitely shed their reputation as underdogs for maybe the first time ever going into a season. As for Foyth, he provides cover if Pau Torres does in fact leave, or Raul Albiol stops defying Father Time. Saying that, both of these players might not start the season in the first team picture, so I'm just going to go middle of the road, 2.5. 1. England. There's no way we need to spend longer than 30 seconds on this. Grealish was an overpay, but he was worth that much to Aston Villa, and Romelu Lukaku's value probably spot on for a striker who turns you into league contenders with his mere arrival, especially if Kane does end up costing 150 mil. Do these moves make the league more competitive? I mean, despite Tuchel recently saying that he regards Chelsea as the 4th best team, it 100% makes them the biggest challenge to Manchester City. I think Man United is still a midfielder away from catching up despite signing Varane and Sancho. Now, City getting stronger does offset my argument somewhat, although having Grealish and Mendy and Raheem Sterling on the same flank does make them vulnerable to teams that enjoy counter-attacking. So it also presents a bit of a problem for Pep Guardiola in terms of balance. Let's go 3 out of 5 and hope that at least Chelsea or someone can go toe-to-toe with City this year. So EFD squad, I present to you your league table based on value for money and competitiveness using the top 2 transfers for each respective division from this summer. Not of all time. Don't start with that in the comments. Based on the same criteria, I want to know what your favourite transfers were and who you think, by league, has had the best summer so far. You know what? If you don't like my criteria, create your own and stick it in the comments below and I'll get back to you in the first hour and beyond. I'm always in the comments. So hit me up. Let's interact. Let's chat. Let's build rapport. And if you enjoyed this video, then please like it. Like I said, if we hit 3,000, me and Patrick Van Straten will roll back the years and do a reaction video to some old Stat Wars, which you guys have been pining for, which I fully appreciate, by the by. And subscribe to the channel with notifications on, because things have slowed up on that front on Eurofootball Daily. And I think it's because I've got really lazy in terms of asking for it. So please heed my call. That's that for this week. Let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes of 1 on 1. See you next time.